أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Last week we began the tafsir of this surah, Surah Fil, which we covered the historical background of the surah and the first verse, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. Now one question arises, this army of Abraha that came to attack the Kaaba, divine punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was sent upon these people and this entire army was destroyed on one hand. On the other hand, you had the people of Quraysh, they had placed so many idols, false idols, in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why was it that the punishment of Allah did not descend upon the people of the non-believers of Makkah who had placed so many idols in the Haram? So the answer to this, the Mufassirun they give, is that the house of Allah, the Kaaba, was built as a mercy for mankind, so that the people could turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it was a mercy, it was a right of the believers, it was a right of the people. And so when Abraha he came and with the intention to attack the Kaaba, he was taking away, he was affecting the rights of the people. So when the rights of the people are affected, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he intervenes, and immediately the help of Allah and the nusra of Allah and the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends. Whereas when the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are not held, they are broken, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the punishment he doesn't immediately send punishment, but he delays the punishment, and the punishment for not fulfilling the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is delayed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes punishes these people in this world and sometimes they are punished in the hereafter. So that's the answer to this question that is posed. Then أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. In the second verse, أَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ كَيْدَهُمْ فِي تَضْلِيلٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he mentions, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, did he not, أَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ كَيْدَهُمْ فِي تَضْلِيلٍ, did he not make their plan, كَيْدَهُمْ, their plan or their plot, go to فِي تَضْلِيلٍ, go to waste. So here again, أَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ, the alam was mentioned in the first verse. Here again, أَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ, another verb which has been, even though we translate it in the past tense, did he not make it go to waste? But again, this yaj'al has come in the present future tense verb, and when this comes, it is used like this. This implies that it shows continuity. This implies continuity, that anybody who, even though this happened, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the people plan of Abraham and his army go to waste. Any person who attempts to do something similar, who attempts to harm the Kaaba, harm the Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make their plans also go to waste. This is why the alam yaj'al, the mudari form has been used. So in the first verse and the second verse, the present future tense verb has been used. When you look at towards the end, فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ, there the past tense has been used, because that particular type of punishment, وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ, again وَأَرْسَلَ and فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ, the verbs there, they are used, they are past tense, that only happened once. That type of particular punishment that descended upon Abraham and his army was specific to them, and is not something that has continuity. It was specific, it happened once to Abraham and his army. So this is alam yaj'al. Then the word ja'ala means to transform something which already exists, and to transform it, to make it into something else. So this kind of implies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed Abraham and his army to execute their plan, to build the church, to build the whatever structure that was built in Yemen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed for that to happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed for his army to come to Makkah with elephants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have destroyed them from before. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have stopped him from even building the church. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have stopped him from even leaving Yemen with his army and reach Makkah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed all of that to happen. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he allows all of that to happen, and in the end Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala transforms it, turns all of that plan, all that preparation that was put forth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reduces that to nothing, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turns that all into waste and gets rid of the entire plan, all the effort that he spent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reduces it to nothing. And this is implied from the word yaj'al, because ja'ala means to transform something to another. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the effort that took place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed for it to happen, but then he turned it to kaydahum fi tadlil, put that to waste. Now the word kaydahum means plot. When you plot to not just any form of plot, when a plot is made to harm someone, then this is referred to as kayd. There's another word in Arabic, makr. Makr is also when you plot to harm someone, but when deception is involved, you try to deceive someone, you try to mislead someone, then you use the word makr. And kayd is a plot made to harm someone, and there's no deception involved, there's no deceiving involved. So Abraham, he made his plot to come and try to harm the people to try to destroy the Kaaba. And again, a kayd is something which is usually, it happens in secret. So again, there's another question here. If the word kayd is used as a plot to harm someone in secret, Abraham and his army, they came publicly, they came in the midst of the day. So why was the word kayd used? Many of the Mufassir, when they give the example, they explain that the enmity they had in their hearts for the people of Makkah, for the people of Quraysh, for the Kaaba, was much worse. وَمَا تُخْفِي صُدُورُهُمْ أَكْبَرُ. And that's why the word kayd has been used. Then kaydahum fi tadlil. Tadlil, ضَلَّ لَيُضَلِّلُ تَضْلِيلًا. Two ways to destroy. It comes from the word ضَلَّ, ضَالِّينَ, which means to be lost. Something ضَل, if you put something in one place and you can't find it anymore, and it becomes lost. So tadlil, ضَلَّ لَيُضَلِّلُ تَضْلِيلًا, it comes from the word ضَلَّ. And usually words that come on this particular pattern of tadlil and the pattern of taf'il includes the meaning of repetition. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made their plans go to waste again and again. First, the church was built, the big structure that was built. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this effort of his in vain, and it was put to waste because people came and defecated it. In some narrations, it was some people set fire to it, and the majority of it was destroyed. Another plan of his was that after building this church or this structure, people would turn to it instead of the Kaaba, but this didn't work as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put that to waste. And finally he travels with his entire army all the way to Makkah, even gets the help of a guide from the people of nearby, and all of this comes to waste. So alam yaj'al kaydahum fi tadlil. Numerous occasions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts their plan all to waste. Kaydahum fi tadlil. So this was the first, أَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ كَيْدَهُمْ فِي تَضْلِيلٍ. The next verse, وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ. So and then وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ, this verse translated, and he sent upon them birds in flocks, in flocks upon flocks. When Abraha and his army, they came, and Abdul Muttalib, who was the chief at the time, after the confrontation he had with Abraham, Abdul Muttalib, he went back to the Kaaba and he makes prayer, he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's his narration that he mentions that when Abraham, after the completion of the dua, he began to see a huge group of birds emerging from the direction of Yemen. So subhanallah, even though the army of Abraham, they came from Yemen, this entire massive group of birds, they also came from the same direction. And these birds, he describes the birds, is narration from Abdul Muttalib, that these birds were unfamiliar. These were strange birds. And the description of the birds, many Mufassirun have given very detailed description of the birds. but I won't talk about, not going to go into detail, but just very brief. Each bird carried 3 stones, 1 in the beak and 2 in its claws. And the stones that would land upon the people, it would penetrate as soon as you'd land, wherever it would hit, it would penetrate and it would come out from the other side. It was like bullets, it would completely penetrate through wherever it landed upon. So here, even if you look on one side, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses birds. Birds are so small and so light in weight. If you look on the other side, the elephants are so big, huge animals compared to birds. And when you look at the weight, elephants are much heavier, much bigger than birds. So birds are harmless to an elephant. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do anything. And so this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the beginning first, Kayfa, He doesn't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you say, do you not see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, uses these birds, which are generally harmless to elephants, and they are so small in comparison to elephants, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses these small birds to completely destroy Abraha and his army. So in the same manner, and so these here again, because this surah has been revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even in the previous verse, when the people of Quraysh, they were helpless and they couldn't defend the Makkah, they had to hide, take refuge in the mountains. They couldn't do anything against the plot of Abraham. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can take care of the plot of Abraham, He can also defend Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam against the Quraysh are nothing in comparison. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can defend Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the believers against the plot, the kaid of the non-Muslims. And also, وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can destroy these people through a group of birds which are genuinely harmless, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also can destroy the enemy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims in a similar fashion. So وَأَرْسَلَ, to send, when the word ala is usually used, it's usually used against as a punishment. When you say ila, is usually used as a mercy. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Anbiya alayhim salam to the people, the word is normally used وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا, we sent to إِلَى ثَمُودَ, to the people of Thamud, أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا, the Prophet Salih alayhi salam. So when Anbiya alayhim as a mercy, أَرْسَلَ إِلَى is used. And when a punishment, you're referring to punishment, أَرْسَلَ عَلَى, the word عَلَى is used. And طَيْرًا أَبَابِيل. طَيْرًا is used as a collective plural noun. It's not, the word tuyur hasn't been used. Tuyur would have meant birds, plural. But tayr is used as a collective plural noun, which means it gives the meaning of all kinds of birds. All kinds of birds were sent upon these people. And when the tanween has been put here, tayran, and this shows that there are many different birds of different categories. And ababil, the last word in the verse, ababil means flocks upon flocks, and scores upon scores, in groups upon groups. And this word ababil it has no singular. Arabs don't use this word in a singular form. It's generally just used in a plural form. Tayran ababil. The birds were sent upon in groups upon groups. And in some narration it comes that so many birds were sent that the entire sky kind of became dark. And you can just imagine such a picture Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws that, and these birds, they came and they destroyed Abraha's army. Then in the next verse, تَرْمِيهِمْ بِحِجَارَةٍ مِّن سِجِّيلٍ, striking them with stones of hard clay. تَرْمِيهِمْ, so the first word تَرْمِيهِمْ, striking them بِحِجَارَةٍ, with stones, min sijil, made from hard clay. So Allah, just brief translation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent upon them birds, tarmihim. The word tarmih has been used, even though this event occurred in the past, but the word that is being used is in the present future tense. The meaning that this pelting of the stones, this dropping of the stones, striking them with stones, it was something that was happening continuously, like rain, that the stones were falling upon them continuously. It's one thing that we understand from the word tarmihim. And the word tarmihim comes from the word rama yarmi, which means to throw. And the word, when you use this word rama, is usually when you throw something from a distance. One. So when these stones, it implies that these stones were thrown from a distance, and the birds are dropping these stones from a distance. And the higher if you throw something from something higher place as opposed to something of a lower place, because of the gravity, whatever the object you throw, you will fall harder, and it will cause more destruction. So these birds were they're dropping these stones from a higher place, causing them to fall harder and to cause more destruction. And one thing. And another, when you normally use the word rama, another meaning which is also included is you throw something at a specific target. So these birds, they were throwing their stones, but it was like targeted attacks. These birds were being thrown at certain particular individuals and directly targeting Abraha and his army, causing them to perish. Then after bihijaratin, with stones. And the stones the description of the stones is given min sijil, with stones made from min sijil. A lot of commentators have mentioned sijil was originally a Farsi, a Persian word, and gradually it became an Arabic word. Originally it was used in Farsi. The Farsi word is sangil, and this in Farsi refers to pebbles which form on the ground when it rains. That the mud that you have, when it rains, the sand clogs up like mud, and then because of the extreme heat, it becomes like pebbles. So these, and if you can crumble, if you apply a bit of force, then this sand, which has become like a pebble or somewhat of a brick, is very weak, very light. So sijil could refer to these dust-based rocks. So meaning the very weak, very light stones, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can use such stones, such an object to destroy an entire army of elephants by just small, very weightless stones and birds. So this is through the qudrat, the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We take lesson that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His armies are endless. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكِ إِلَّا هُ. Nobody knows the armies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except Him. Then ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل, and in the final verse فجعلهم كعصف مأكول, and he made them like an empty field of stalks eaten up. One translation that was given. So فجعل, like mentioned, جعل, you have something and you make it into something else. For example, if you have wood and you make that into a table, you'd use the word جعل for in a sentence. If the wood, you'd make that into a table, you'd use the word ja'ala. And khalaqa is when you create something out of nothing. So faja'alahum, and he transformed them, he made them into something which looked like ka'asfin ma'kul. Now ka is something refers to something like. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes as they were like. Ka'as comes from it comes from the word asif, according to some people, like rihun asif, refers to a wind which blows and cuts off then crumpled up leaves. And asf can also refer to straw and hay which flies in the air. Asfin, and ma'kul is something which is eaten. So when you have cattle, when you have animals that eat the food, the hay that is provided to them, you have a part of that food that is not eaten, is just left around their mouths, and then this the remains of the food that the animals are eating or trying to eat. The remains of that is referred to asfin ma'kul. So like this food, it has no choice; it cannot defend itself, and even after the animals they eat it, is completely crushed and in the mouth of the animal and is eaten away. Like similarly, in the same manner, Abraha and his army, they were unable to defend themselves. Some people give this meaning from the word ma'kul, that like food, it has no choice, it has no option but to be eaten. Similarly, in that same manner, Abraha and his army, they had no power to defend themselves. They were going to be destroyed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he utterly destroyed this entire army, and to the extent that he gives an example that they were, in the end, they were like that food which is eaten and defenseless. So this is the conclusion of this surah, the tafsir of this surah. One final note before I finish. So from this surah, this is the 10th surah. From Alam Tara to the end of the Quran, you have 10 surahs. Like in Surah Ila fi Quraysh was mentioning that Allah, in one place in the Quran, before this, all these events that occurred, they occurred in Makkah. And before the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, he builds the house of Allah, he builds the Kaaba. At the time, there is no one living there. There is not a city. It's just desert. So upon this occasion, he makes a dua. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ جَعَلْ هَذَا بَلَدًا آمِنًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make this بَلَدًا آمِنًا. Make this a peaceful city. The one dua he makes, to make it peaceful. Then the second dua, وَرَزُقْ أَهْلَهُ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ. And provide these people with thamarat, prosperity. So even after many years after the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, this dua has been made. Now the safety of this Makkah is in jeopardy. Abraha and his entire army of elephants, they are coming to attack. There is nobody there to defend Makkah. So when Abraha and his army comes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfills, keeps the city of Makkah safe, and he destroys the entire army of Abraha and his elephants. So this is Alam Tara Kayfa Fa'ala Rabbuka bi Ashabil Fil. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is keeping Makkah safe, and this is the answering of the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the first part. Then Li'ila fi Quraysh is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided prosperity to the people of the Makkah, to the people of Quraysh, how they could freely travel, they could freely trade. The economy was good because they were allowed to trade, nobody would loot them. And this was a knock-on effect of the event. This happened of the reverence of the people of Makkah only increased after the event of Abraha and his army. And this was so significant that the calendar kind of began to rotate around Amul Fil. They named this year Amul Fil, the year of the elephants. So this was Alam Tara, these two surahs. Then in the next surah, after Li'ila fi Quraysh, in Surah Ma'un Ra'ayta. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enumerates the favors and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam in these two surahs. So as a result, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ, they should, in Surah Quraysh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that these people, they should worship the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then the qualities of the people, the custodians of Makkah at the time, the Quraysh, their qualities are mentioned in أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ, and what type of people they are, that they do not deserve to be the custodians of the Kaaba. So if these people are not worthy, and their qualities are being mentioned in أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ, so who is worthy? Who should be the custodian? Who should pray and who should fulfill the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Is إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the virtues and the merits of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And especially two things are mentioned: فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ, and pray to your Rabb, وَانْحَرْ, and sacrifice. And these are two key qualities of Ibrahim alayhi salam: to pray to Allah, and wanhar, to sacrifice. And in the concluding verse of إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرَ إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ, verily your enemy is the one who his lineage has been cut off. So referring to the enemy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the next verse, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the Arab tradition, your citizenship or where you came from was based on your you could say where you came from, or your lineage, or who you're affiliated with, or your nasab, your lineage. But in Surah Kafirun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to say to these people, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ, O you kafirun. He doesn't even say, "Oh my people," or "Oh people." He just said, "Call these people, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ." Like this, so completely severing the ties, the connections with these people completely. Like kind of declaring that we are on different paths, we are enemies. So if a dispute occurs between two groups of people, obviously one side is going to emerge victorious, and one side is going to lose. So this declaration has been forth in Qul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun. So in the next surah, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives glad tidings to His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the help of Allah and the fath, the conquest, the victory will be given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the surah afterwards, Tabbat Yada, before a major sign, you have a smaller sign. For example, before a storm is going to come, you'll begin to see the clouds and a bit of rain. So similarly, before the main conquest, before the main victory of Islam, the conquest of Makkah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam a minor victory, a minor sign, that Tabbat Yada Abi Lahabin wa Tab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove, destroy your enemy, especially Abu Lahab. And after this, Qul Huwallahu Ahad is mentioned. Why? Because when a dispute or when a war has been going on for so long, and people forget the reason why, in the first place, what was it that we were fighting for? What were we disputing over? So the concept, the legacy, if you look at the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the main thing was the tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why all this difference occurred. So Qul Huwallahu Ahad has been mentioned, Surah Ikhlas, to remind that this is all for so that the wahdat, the wahdaniyat, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people can turn to Allah alone and not to ascribe any partners unto Allah. But again, even people at a time, they are on the oneness of Allah, they are on tawheed. But what happens gradually over time, they're influenced by external and internal influences, which causes them, that tawheed, the pure oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be influenced. And people begin to ascribe partners to Allah. So as a protection to keep this oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pure, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, it was being given to protect this oneness, tawheed, from external influences, and from, like was mentioned in the Tafseer, and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, to protect this tawheed from internal influences, from jinn and from waswasa, etc. So this was just a brief overview, short recap of this last 10 surahs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'an al-azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wal dhikri al-hakim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to act and understand and take lessons from the Qur'an. And whatever I have said correct, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to understand and act upon it. And if I have said anything incorrect, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove it from our minds and our hearts. Ameen.